My friends, hello. I'm still in Dubai. By the way, I've opened private consultations. If you have an immigration project and want to talk about it, check the pinned comment. There's a link. So today, I'd like to talk to you about this sad story of Mr. Macron. Full disclosure of conflict of interest. I'm against Macron, you know me. However, just because we're against someone politically doesn't mean we should applaud the fact that they're experiencing domestic violence. There's something you need to know. Today's image, just to talk about the facts, we have the presidential Airbus parked at Hanoi Airport. An arrival, right? It's the first time the French president Macron has arrived there. So everyone was waiting for him, the officials, the cameras, TV, all of that. So Mr. Macron's Airbus has moved forward. They open the door, the cameras are filming, and what happens? Mr. Macron gets punched in the face. Literally, a hand comes in, bam! He gets hit right on the side of his face. The arm, you can't see the person hitting, but they're dressed in red. A second later, Brigitte Macron comes out, right? She's dressed in red, and you realize that it's her, there you go, who confronted her. That's what you call an assault here, right? So he regains his composure, and then there you go, he goes down. So now, let me tell you something. This is something quite serious. In fact, very serious. Very often people say that domestic violence is a man's thing, but that's not true. It's not always men who abuse women. That's when the man takes the hit, the man is beaten. And unfortunately, as is often the case, men don't dare to talk about it. Men won't talk about it. So when there are signs showing that they've taken a hit, they tend to deny it. Women deny it too. But men, I would say, deny it more vehemently, don't they? So, as I was saying, let's just imagine another scenario. I like to use my imagination, let me tell you. Imagine that instead of it being an Airbus, it was a Boeing 747. Let's take Donald Trump's Boeing 747 Air Force One. It's parked there, the door opens, we have Melania Trump, and bam, live in front of the cameras, she gets punched in the face. What do you think would have happened? Well, obviously we'd be talking about it for weeks and weeks, and rightfully so. But here, because it's a man who's taking it, people find it funny, they think it's amusing and all that. No, there's nothing funny about it, okay? You just have to imagine if it had been the other way around. Anyway, we broke a record today. The reality is that we broke a record, let me tell you. This morning, when the video came out, a lot of people from the Elysee, among others, were saying that this video is a fake. They were saying it was made with AI and all that. That story held. That version lasted 90 minutes. Before they said, yes, the video is real, it's authentic, but they were just playing around, they just had a little moment, that's all. What's surprising, and that's what's worrying, is that, well, first of all, we had 90 minutes between the conspiracy theory and reality. Usually it used to take years, then months, then weeks, and today we're counting in minutes between awful conspiracy theorists getting exposed, and then they tell you, yes, but no, it's true, but it's not what you think, it's not what you believe. That's the first point. The second point, which is still worrying in this video, is that, let's say it was taken on a sailboat by a paparazzi filming with a telephoto lens, etc. We could have said, listen, it was a private scene, they were just fooling around, etc. Well, it was taken out of context. Except that here, this is a solemn moment. This is a head of state visiting another nation. He is actually visiting to try to outdo the United States, because what happened is that Vietnam was hit with tariffs by Trump, and then afterwards it decided to buy American. So what Mr. Macron is running over there with Airbuses and other stuff in his suitcase, trying to sell them things, to say, listen, okay, Trump is nice enough, but we don't want to lose business in Vietnam because Vietnam has always been a pretty significant commercial partner for France. Let's remember the history of Indochina and so on, an old story. So let me tell you, in our situation, we have a solemn moment. The door is opening, there are cameras, the guy is doing his job, and what does she do? She gives him a fatherly slap. There, you see, so you understand that it feels like we're in a situation where she's a little bit out of control. There's a lack of control. This lack of control was compared to another scandal. Let me explain. Remember, about 2 weeks ago, we had the handkerchief gate scandal. We had Macron, who was visiting Ukraine, and then he was leaving by train. And suddenly there's a handkerchief lying on the table. By the way, the handkerchief was pretty suspicious because from a distance, at first glance, given the context, you could have mistaken it for a bag of powder. You could have, that's it. When you know what you know, see what you see, and hear what you hear, you can certainly think what you think. And what we think is that, for example, this week, there were several ODs, several overdoses. Recently, we had a guy, a parliamentary assistant, he overdosed and was between life and death. They found drugs, hard drugs, at the National Assembly. So in reality, we know one thing, we know that we have a political class that needs to be detoxed. It's a political class that is a victim. Look, today, I'm being nice, that is a victim. So, of abuse, right? That abuse is various kinds of drugs. And that, unfortunately, is a problem. Because if you're driving a vehicle, let's say you're driving a car, like Pierre Palmade, you're driving a car, well, you're stoned. What can you do? You could cause an accident or damage. In the same way, you can't run a country or control a country if you're constantly under the influence of drugs. That's not possible. We're going to cause damage. And besides, the proof is when we see the policies that are being implemented, sometimes we wonder, do the people who are carrying out those policies even know what they're doing or not? Are they in their right minds? Well, no, not really. And we see that substances unfortunately play a major role in their decision-making processes. So what we have, Macron is completely losing control. That means the presidential bearing just isn't there. Me, I respect, for example, even if I'm not talking about the record, I'm talking about embodying the presidential role. For example, Mitterrand, if he left on a trip at 3 a.m. on the Concorde, he wanted the full Republican Guard standing at attention and the red carpet. Why? It's not a question of having a big head or showing off. It was a matter of embodying the presidential office with class and solemnity. Back in those days, even Chirac, there was a certain grace, there was a certain elegance. These weren't people hiding bags, these weren't people getting beaten by their wives and so on. Can you imagine Bernadette Chirac beating Chirac? Jacques, no, that's not possible. But now, today, unfortunately, we have a collapse of the presidency and politics more generally. When you have parliamentarians ODing, when you have a president doing all kinds of nonsense, well, at some point, there's a complete loss of trust in this caste and this establishment. In any case, thank you for watching this video. Let me remind you again, if you need to talk, if you want to talk, check the link in the pinned comment and we can have a Zoom meeting and discuss your project. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.